stuff anyway. Thank you. I think I should start off with some thank yous. You know, they reckon that whenever it comes time for an author to launch a book, and it comes time to choosing someone to launch that book, that it's always a good idea to choose someone way more famous than yourself in the hope that some of that fame will rub off. And I was quite astonished when Alison actually said yes, given that I'd only known her for a couple of weeks, and sent her off this email saying, "Oh, would you please launch my book?" And I sent her a copy and she read it and said yes. So thank you very much for agreeing to launch that today. Secondly, a huge thank you to the library staff for hosting the launch here in the Mentone Grammar Library. It's a fantastic place for a launch. I think you can have no better spot to launch a book than a library, being surrounded by books. And they've positioned all the bookshelves around us to close us in. I think that's great. So thank you very much to the staff and to the school for allowing us to have the launch here. Now some personal thank yous. Firstly to my mum and dad who are out in the audience there today. I don't think I could ever become a writer if I did not have their encouragement and support as a kid and a teenager. They were always encouraging me to read and to write and to follow my dreams, and they always believed that I would make it, even when I did not. So to them, a huge thank you. Lastly, but by certainly no means least, a huge thank you to my wife, Kerry, and my daughters. Again, you don't do this kind of thing without a huge amount of support. And particularly Kerry, who reads every single word I write before I send it out to an editor or a publisher. And believe me, she has saved me many embarrassing moments by picking me up on all sorts of inaccuracy. So to her, a huge thank you. I love you heaps. Thank you very much. Now it's really very appropriate to be here at Mentone Grammar to launch this, because I used to be a student here way back in the 1980s. Yes, I'm old. And a lot of the stories in this book are based on my time here at Mentone Grammar. Either the starting points for the stories were either things that happened to me or I saw happening to the people around me. They're just the starting points. I should emphasize that. I then took those starting points and went further with them. Like, so I can assure you that I never brought a gun to school. I can assure you that I never held a teacher hostage by knife point. I can assure you that I never had a girlfriend turn into a rampaging monster. And so on and so on. So they only have their start in my past, not their entirety. Oh, and if you hadn't noticed, the front cover of the book, the jacket, that's actually my old school blazer that the model wore for the photograph shoot that ended up on the front cover, which is really kind of nice. It's a nice coming full circle to have that on the cover of the book at my old school for the launch. I think it's quite sharp. All right. I thought what I'd do is, rather than just picking one slab from one story to read out, I'd talk about a couple of the stories and just read you a little bit from them. So for those, if there are any Year 10 students here who were in the session that I did earlier today, I apologise. I'm about to read the same bit that I read out to you guys. This is from the start of Life, Death and Detention, the title story. Kevin felt the sting of the rubber band as it hit his ear. He tried to ignore it and focused on the essay he was writing. A spitball hit him in the back of the neck. He wiped it off and continued to write. There was a loud clatter as a compass landed on the desk next to him, the point digging into the plastic. Mr. Norton looked up from his work, stared disapprovingly at Kevin, and then returned to marking the tests. Kevin looked over his shoulder to see Fletch seated 2 desks behind him, an evil grin on his face. He turned back to his essay, and another spitball hit him in the back of the head. I was a nerdy, geeky kid at school. Seriously nerdy, geeky kid. And I tended to get bullied a bit. And that was the starting point for this story. There are two types of bullying. There's the open sort, you know, the name calling, the pushing and shoving, the stuff that everybody sees. And, you know, that was something I could deal with okay, and in fact, I could even turn that to my advantage sometimes. But it's this sort of bullying that I deal with in this story, the surreptitious sort, the sort that nobody sees, that I found difficult to deal with, and I put that in the story and used it as the starting point for that particular story. I'll read another bit now from a story called On the Edge of a Knife. The teacher's heart began to race, pounding his chest. How could he explain that Robert was only one of many students in an overcrowded class? That even though his performance was deteriorating, it still wasn't as bad as others in the class? That he had made the judgment that there were others in greater need of personal attention? He tried to choose his words very carefully. I thought you'd be able to sort it out on your own.
James Hewitt Murphy and Gemma Ford to Mr. Payne's office now, please. James Hewitt Murphy and Gemma Ford to Mr. Payne's office now, please.
Well, there goes also dramatic tension. We'll persevere. Your marks weren't as good as they used to be, but you were still passing. I thought that... You thought, said Robert, cutting him off. You thought. They all thought, but no one offered to help, not a single teacher. You all thought about it, you all probably discussed it over coffee in the staff room, but none of you did anything. Robert's grip tightened, his knuckles whitening. Well, now I'm going to do something about it. The whole idea of this story, I guess, was a power play between a student and a teacher, and the teacher losing power. Teachers are meant to be in control. Teachers are meant to be people in the position of power in a school. And I remember one incident at school, an incident that actually became quite legendary while I was here, with one particular teacher who lost control and lost his power, desperately tried to regain it, failed. And that stuck with me, and I thought that would be an interesting thing to explore, the loss and the change of power. Of course, I did it in a very different way. The student has a knife, he's holding the teacher hostage. It's all quite different and much more dramatic. But then that's what you do in short stories. You take real life and you make it more dramatic. One more here. This is from a story called The Played Unforgettable. I ducked back down behind the hedges as I saw him approach the three hangers-on who waited by the back fence. As they stood around lighting cigarettes, I realized that I didn't even know their names. They were just the hangers-on who followed Wayne around. I wondered how in the world they had become a group and what kept them together. While working on the project, I got the chance to see another side of Wayne.